Wall Street corrects. The Dow Jones and the S&P 500 come off record highs in Monday's session as yields rise and on worries of the US Fed not cutting rates as much as expected. Asian markets trade with cuts on the back of a weak handover from Wall Street, while the gift Nifty is indicating a muted start for the Indian market. Crude prices edge higher as the United States strikes Iran-backed targets in Syria and Yemen, while gold prices hit a weekly low as the dollar index strengthens to a 3-month high. Bharti Airtel delivers a healthy third quarter. Revenue is in line with estimates, while margin beats. The telco also added 3.3 million subscribers in the quarter gone by. In key earnings to track today, a muted quarter is expected from Britannia as the demand environment remains muted. From the broader market, watch out for earnings from Godrej Properties, Nykaa and Nazara Technologies. Good morning in the Mumbai News Centre. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. Those are the top headlines that we are tracking this Tuesday morning. A lot of action in our own markets. We have a lot of global cues to track as well. So let's start with that. Let's take a look at the Asian markets first up. Now remember, the Taiwanese markets, they're shut right now on account of a holiday. So we have rates coming in from Hang Seng. That one is looking good. That's up 1%. But barring Hang Seng, most of the Asian markets, they are in the red after a weak handover from Wall Street. So something like a Shanghai, that one is down 1%. We have a Kospi sitting with cuts of 0.8%. The Nikkei also is down 0.6%. So it's really Hang Seng which is doing well in the Asian markets right now. And Taiwanese markets, they are shut. The gift Nifty, that will come up for you on the screen, and that one is indicating that the start will be absolutely flat. Some positive bias right now, but we'll have to see which way things go, because yesterday as well, it was a close in the red for Indian markets. Let's talk about US markets now. Wall Street ended lower on Monday. Dow Jones lost over 270 points, while the S&P lost 0.32%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq also edged 0.2% lower. Treasury yields, they surged on concerns that Federal Reserve may not cut rates as much as expected. In an interview, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said that the central bank will proceed carefully with interest rate cuts this year and will likely move at a considerably slower pace than what the market expects. He also added that the Fed wants to see evidence that inflation is moving sustainably down to 2%. Yesterday, the Minneapolis Federal Reserve President Neil Kashkari also said in his essay that high interest rates are not hurting the economy. He added that it could buy policymakers more time before deciding whether to cut the rates. Social media company Snap announced that they will lay off 10% of its global workforce to promote in-person collaboration. And let's talk about the earnings front now. McDonald's fell over 3.7% after their revenue missed estimates as conflict in West Asia hit its sales in the region. So that's a wrap of all the action that we saw on Wall Street. But it's time to listen into some important opinion coming in from market experts and Fed's decision to not go for rate cuts in March and its impact on the U.S. markets.
The Fed really doesn't want to lose credibility. The history suggests something you and I have talked about, stop-start is not considered, good central banking. And so I've always had the expectation they'd probably hang on at rates a little higher for a little longer than the market expected, for the reasons that Chair Powell is now articulating very clearly, which is, they really want a strong sense of confidence that the inflation rate is coming back down to 2%. They also have the luxury now of seeing an economy itself that looks like it's in good shape. And that gives them, I think, again, the ability to wait and see, because, tight rates are not doing, do not appear at this stage to be doing significant damage to the economy.
Market is, all involved in trying to figure out exactly what the Fed is going to do, which is, of course, impossible. We know we are not going to have any more rate hikes, and we know rates are on their way down. We just don't know exactly, when this is going to happen. And Jay Powell on in his recent address, said that the March is most likely too quick and that they have to be patient given the strength of the economy. So we have to wait for the data to come in and see if we actually are going to see the sufficient economic slowdown.
Okay, that's the global market action. Some commentary coming in there as well. But how will these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have our research team joining in, as always, to tell you what the trade setup is looking like and the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and, of course, the action from the F&O space as well. Hey guys, a very good morning to all of you. Hormas, let me come to you. Looks like it could be a slightly muted day today.
It could be a muted day, but then it does not really matter how the start is, considering the last hour jinx that has been plaguing the markets recently. And it was the same happened yesterday as well. Now, in 4 out of the last 5 trading sessions, we have seen that the Nifty, after making an intraday high, has failed to sustain at those levels. As you can see in the graph on your screen there, even yesterday, the index was down almost 200 points from the day's high. And even the last 3 sessions, it has seen cuts of almost 150 to 300 points from the highest point of the day. So we keep that on the back of our minds. There is volatility at higher levels, and as a result of this volatility, the India VIX was up almost 6% yesterday. It's crossed the mark of 15, and now if it crosses that mark of 16.6, that will be a 52-week high for the VIX as well. But the broader markets, that was what triggered the sell-off yesterday. The small cap index corrected sharply from the highest point of the day. Even the mid cap index was down 450 points from the highest point of the day as well. The small cap index, though, mind you, is up for 8 days in a row, so we'll take note of that as well. A pocket that has been doing consistently well is the PSUs, but in line with the sell-off that happened yesterday, the PSUs also sharply corrected from the highest point of the day. And but if you see, the delivery volumes in most of these were way below their 5-year averages. The SJVN, NHPC, NMDC, Indian Oil as well was up 7%, but the delivery volumes were far less compared to their 5-year average. Levels to watch now: the 20 DMA on the downside on the Nifty around 21,645, 21,650. That's the level to watch for. On the Nifty Bank as well, around 46,350. That's the 20 DMA that we need to keep an eye out for at the start as well. Earnings reactions today from Bharti Airtel, Suven Pharma, Ashok Leyland. Numbers came after market hours. Companies like Britannia, Godrej Properties, CAMS, Nykaa, they'll be reporting results today as well. And as you said, GIFT Nifty is indicating a muted start for our markets. Back to you.
Okay, all right. So those are some of the market cues that you should keep an eye out on. Of course, the global cues also to be taken care of. But let's talk about the stocks and news. Upasana is joining us now. Hey, Upasana, good morning.
Hey, good morning. So first up is Bharti Airtel. The company reported a healthy Q3. Revenues were in line and margins were slightly ahead. Next up is HDFC Bank. So IndusInd Bank says that HDFC Bank gets a RBI nod to acquire aggregate holding of almost up to 9.5% in the bank. That's the reason the stock will remain in focus today. Well, next is Tata Chemicals. The company reported a weak set of numbers. It says that the demand continues to remain weak and pricing pressure also continues. Talking about revenue, the revenue were down almost about 10.1% on YoY basis. Next up is Ashok Leyland. The company reported a healthy Q3. The Q3 margin beats estimates. Top line growth continues to be in the single digit. Coming to the margins reported by the company were 12.8% versus 8.8% on YoY basis, which was above our poll. IEX, the company has given its January business update. The total volumes are seen at 10,893 MU, which was up almost 26.1% on YoY basis. Next is Adani Total Gas. The company signs a mutual support arrangement with Inox CVA to strengthen the LNG ecosystem in India. Shree Cement also will remain in focus. It says that the no demand for tax deposition. Shree Cement has clarified on the report of receiving 4,000 crores of final IT notice. That was the media report that was circulating in the company. And lastly, LIC, the board meeting on 8th of Feb to consider interim dividend for FY 23-24. So all the stocks will remain in focus today.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Upasana, for that list. Finally, let's talk about the cues from the FNO space now. Manglam is joining us. Hey, Manglam.
Good morning. So yesterday, it was an extremely volatile day. The market opened higher, then went lower, then went higher, then again towards the end of trading session went lower. All in all, it was a day where the Nifty moved around in a 200-point range itself. But if you look at the intraday chart of the Nifty Public Sector Index, towards the end of trade, that came in for a fair amount of profit taking. And that was in line with the other set of the market as well. And with the kind of stocks that moved lower, it told you that it was more domestic selling than FII selling. And that's exactly what happened as well. The domestic, institutions sold about 1,200 crores in the cash market. The FIIs on their part, though, bought 500 crores in the cash market. And not just that, they bought about, 1,300 crores in index futures as well. The index futures premium yesterday on the Nifty was down from almost 100 points to 31 points. That would have meant that maybe someone sold in index futures, not the FIIs for sure. The FIIs bought about 1,300 crores. They added around 11,800 long contracts, covered a few short contracts. And as a result of which, the FII long exposure is now at 36%. Remember, this number at the start of the series was 22%. And the contract exposure is a net short of 62,000. This, remember, at the start of the series was close to 1.08 lakh contracts itself. In terms of active options, the fact that we're seeing profit taking at higher levels, call writers are extremely active. 21,900 call and the 22,000 call on the Nifty are active, telling you levels closer to 22,000 will continue to see some sell-off. It is Fin Nifty options expiry today, so that is something that we'll be watching out for too. And on the lower level, watch out for two levels. On the Nifty, the 20-day moving average, and the Nifty Bank, the 100-day moving average. Those are a bunch of levels. And in terms of stocks, remember, both UPL and NALCO have entered F&O ban, data point that we pointed out yesterday in the middle of the trading session.
Okay, all right. So these two stocks will be on our radar apart from the market cues that we spoke about. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us and prepping us up for this trading day ahead. We'll slip into a break. Up next, the interbank call rates fell below the repo rate of 6.5% for the first time in many months. We'll get you more details on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's talk about an important piece of news. Yesterday, India's interbank call rate fell below the repo rate of 6.5% for the first time in many months. Dealers say this may be a sign that the RBI may soften its stance in the upcoming monetary policy. Lata filed this report.
Yes, it's important news for the money markets that the call rate has fallen today below the repo rate of 6.5% for the first time in many months. For the last 4-5 months, probably since September, October, the call rate has been between 6.75 and 6.8. So that's a seminal fall. The meaning of call rate itself is that it is the rate at which banks borrow from one another for a one-day period. Now, RBI has been keeping this liquidity tight for two reasons. One, government has been spending very slowly for the past few months, but RBI also has been keeping the liquidity tight because inflation went up to, 7.8% and all that in July and August because of the tomatoes inflation. But now, in November and December, inflation has fallen below Reserve Bank forecasts. As well, the Reserve Bank on Jan 25th gave the market about 2.5 trillion rupees through a 15-day repo auction. And this, coupled with government spending some money, usual month-end salary payments, etc., had led to a fall in the call rate on Friday itself. The fact that it has fallen today as well is giving markets an indication that probably the Reserve Bank is now comfortable with a slightly lower rate because inflation is not so serious a problem. They are reading it as a possible sign that in the upcoming monetary policy, the Reserve Bank may well change its stance and adopt a more dovish stance.
Thank you so much, Lata, for joining us with all those important details. With that, let's talk about earnings now. Bharti Airtel reported a healthy third quarter with revenue meeting estimates, while margin was slightly better than expected. Rima is joining us to tell us more about this one. Rima.
Thanks so much for that. So as you pointed out, it's a healthy quarter for Bharti Airtel. Consolidated revenue growth at 2.3% is in line with street expectations. Margins for the company have fallen by about 20 basis points on a quarter-on-quarter basis, but this is slightly ahead of what the CNBC-TV18 poll was. Now, focusing on the India business, because that's comparable to Reliance Jio and even to Vodafone Idea. Here, the company's revenue growth has come in at 3.3%, which is ahead of peers, both Jio and Vodafone Idea. Margins too for the India business continue to expand and now have crossed that 55% band. And one of the key drivers for this is the ARPU, the average revenue per user, which is now hit 208. In fact, on a quarter-on-quarter basis, Bharti's ARPUs are up 2.5%, which is again a superior performance compared to peers. However, on the subscriber number, subscriber growth has come in at about 3.3 million on a quarter-on-quarter basis, but this is in line with estimates, but falls short of Reliance Jio, for instance, where Reliance Jio had a growth of more than 11 million subscribers on a sequential basis. But all in all, it's a healthy and largely in-line quarter for Bharti Airtel.
Okay, all right, that's about Bharti Airtel. The stock will be on our radar. Time for a short break now. More news and updates will follow on the other side. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave his vote of thanks speech in the Lok Sabha yesterday. He emphasized on the progress India was making on digitization and economic growth. Taking a dig at the opposition, he also accused the Congress party of suffering from cancel culture and stalling India's development by opposing the BJP-led government's reforms. Listen in.
मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि 30 साल हम नहीं लगने देंगे। ये मोदी की गारंटी है। मेरे तीसरे कार्यकाल में देश दुनिया की तीसरी आर्थिक शक्ति बन जाए। आज भारत दुनिया की डिजिटल इकोनॉमी है, अग्रणी है। आने वाले समय में ये डिजिटल इंडिया मूवमेंट जो है वो देश के नौजवानों के लिए अनेक अनेक अवसर, अनेक अनेक रोजगार, अनेक अनेक प्रोफेशंस के लिए अवसर लेकर के आने वाला है। आज विपक्ष की जो हालत होगी ना, इसकी सबसे दोषी कांग्रेस पार्टी है। कांग्रेस को एक अच्छा विपक्ष बनने का बहुत बड़ा अवसर मिला और 10 साल कम नहीं होते, लेकिन 10 साल में उस दायित्व को निभाने में भी वे पूरी तरह विफल गए। देश ने जितना परिवारवाद का खामियाजा उठाया है और उसका खामियाजा खुद कांग्रेस ने भी उठाया है।
Okay, from that, let's move on and get you the latest on the tensions in West Asia. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with the Saudi Crown Prince and the Foreign Minister ahead of rising conflict between Israel and Hamas. The meeting that lasted for 2 hours saw the officials discuss a Saudi normalization deal with Israel. Palestinians hope that the visit brings fruit to a truce before a threatened Israeli assault on the Rafah is likely. Blinken is also set to visit Egypt, Qatar, Israel and the Israel-occupied West Bank this week. Okay, now bringing you some news from the British royal family. 75-year-old monarch King Charles III has been diagnosed with cancer, following which he will be avoiding public events as advised by his doctors to minimize in-person contact. This news comes a week after both Princess Kate and King Charles were discharged from a private London clinic after medical procedures. No further details about what type of cancer King Charles has have been released at this stage. Okay, all right. On that note, we'll do one thing. We'll take care of you on this edition of Power Breakfast, but do stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next with all the market action.